Today we are talking about a delivery in cricket that has completely, and I mean completely, flipped the art of fast bowling on its head. It is a ball that was born somewhere between a mistake and a stroke of genius. We are talking about the wobble seam. You know, this quote from Wiston just hits the nail on the head. The wobble seam isn't some perfect polished out of the coaching manual technique. No, it is way more interesting than that. It lives in the strange, fascinating space between a deliberate plan and a total accident. So just think about this for a second. What if the most devastating weapon a bowler has today wasn't cooked up in some high tech lab? What if it was just discovered almost by chance by bowlers who weren't even trying to be perfect? Well, that's exactly the story we are going to unpack. Okay, so let's get right into it. On the list, you've got your traditional swing bowling. It's all about control, right? Fingers are tight, the seam is angled, just so. And the ball spins like a perfect top. It creates movement you can kind of predict, but now look at the right, the wobble seam. The fingers are spread wide, the seam is scrambled, and it wobbles through the air, and that chaos is the whole point, because it creates total unpredictability when the ball hits the pitch. Now, this whole revolution, it wasn't started by the guys bowling at 100 miles an hour. Nope, it was pioneered by a handful of bowlers who either by pure instinct or just by tinkering around figured this thing out way before anyone else. They weren't always the fastest, but boy, the results they got was just off the charts. So who are we talking about? Well, first there's Australia's Stuart Clark. He just bowled this way naturally and walked into one of the greatest teams of all time and instantly became one of their best. Then you've got Vernon Philander from South Africa, whose mastery of this thing made him ridiculously quick to 50 test wickets. And then there is the most amazing story of them all, a guy named Alan Richardson. And this quote from Philander says it all, doesn't it? The delivery's greatest weapon is its randomness. I mean, if the guy bowling the ball has no clue which way it's going to go off the seam, what earthly chance does the batter have with less than half a second to figure it out? But really, if you want to see just how the game changing this delivery is, you have to look at Alan Richardson. He's a guy 34 years old after a pretty average career, literally looking for jobs outside of cricket. He was done, but then he thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose, and he went all in on bowling the wobble seam. The result? 254 wickets in 4 seasons. He went from a journeyman pro to the most successful bowler in the entire country, practically overnight. He wasn't any faster, he wasn't any younger, but because he was attacking both edges of the bat with his completely unpredictable ball, he became twice the bowler he had ever been. It's an incredible story. So, what is it about this ball? What's the actual science that makes it such a nightmare for even the best batters in the world? Well, the data, it turns out, gives us a pretty clear answer. Okay, just look at these numbers from ClickWiz. First bar shows that against swing bowling in the air, batters average a pretty decent 26.7. Look at the second bar against seam movement. Even half the amount of deviation that average absolutely plummets to around 20. It's proof that late movement of the pitch is so much deadlier than movement through the air. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. A batter can read a swing bowler. They look for clues, right? The shiny side of the ball, the wrist position, the angle of the seam, they get all this early info. The wobble seam just takes all of that away. By the time the ball does something, it is way too late to adjust. Which brings us to this key idea, the chaos element. See, traditional bowling is like a chess match, a game of cat and mouse. The wobble seam just takes the whole chessboard out of the window. Plan is to create chaos. That's it. Just land it in a good spot and let the ball's randomness force the batter into a mistake. Okay, so if the ball is so ridiculously effective, where did it come from and why did it take so long for everyone to catch on? Let's do a little detective work and trace. It's kind of tangled history. The roots of this thing actually go back further than you would think. Back in the 90s, legends like Ambrose and Walsh were getting guys out with seam that wasn't perfectly upright. Then the 2000s, Sean Pollock called his a dirty seam. But the real godfather seems to be Stuart Clark, who then passed the knowledge to James Anderson. And get this, Anderson's longtime partner Stuart Broad learned it on his own by studying videos of Pollock. It's this amazing crisscrossing web of influence. And that brings us to the real catalyst here, technology. The reason this thing exploded in the late 2000s video analysis, I mean, for the very first time, a bowler like Stuart Broad could just sit in his hotel room, fire up YouTube, and study the tiniest detail of Sean Pollock's wrist from a decade earlier. That just wasn't possible before. It was a total game changer. So we know what it is, we know where it came from, but let's take a second to appreciate the sheer scale of the impact. This delivery didn't just add a new trick to the bag, it fundamentally rewrote the rules of the contest between bat and ball. The ripple effect has been huge. Test batting averages have literally dropped to their lowest point. This century in county cricket, openers' average just fell off a cliff, and maybe the biggest tell of all, even the greatest swing bowler ever, James Anderson, had to completely change his game, swinging at less to seam more, and that's the key. The wobble seam went from being a surprise variation ball to being a bowler's main weapon, this stock delivery. This whole shift was captured perfectly in this one legendary showdown between two modern day titans of the game. James Anderson, the absolute master of his craft, taking on Virat Kohli, one of the greatest batters of all time. And just listen to what Alan Richardson had to say. He delivered a ball that by any logical standard should not be possible, said Richardson of Anderson. It was a wobble ball that also swung in through the air and then it hit the pitch and seemed a way to take the edge. It just defied physics. It was the ultimate expression of skill, combining both arts, leaving everyone, including experts, just shaking their heads in disbelief. But cricket, as we know, is a constant arms race. Bowlers come up with something new, and you can bet the batters are going to try and figure out a way to fight back. They're not sitting there taking it. They're actively trying to counter this threat. So, how are they doing it? Well, first, they are trying to mess with the bowler's length, batting out of the crease or walking down the pitch. Second, they're changing their guard, moving around the crease to cover the potential movement. And third, you've got this whole baseball philosophy, pure aggression. The thinking is, hey, if the new hard ball is main problem, then let's attack it, score off it, and get it soft as quickly as possible. Which leaves us with the one last really fascinating thought. The current generation of bowlers had to learn this delivery, but the next generation, they're growing up with that knowledge from day one. As this incredible game of cat and mouse continues, you have to wonder what's the next evolution. The future of fast bowling is coming down the pitch right now, and absolutely nobody knows which way it's going to dart.